Hello and welcome to the Maurer podcast. Today I'm here with Artemis and we're talking about cars. Mostly because I've been waiting on my Tesla for 2 years now. So today we're talking about cars, and I have been sort of our relationship with cars and what we want from a car and how that has changed over the years and how it's different with different generations. And I've been thinking about cars so much lately because I just got another email last night from my good friend Elon Musk, who, I got the email from Tesla telling me that my Tesla Model 3, the delivery has been delayed again, and they wanted me to know that. What's interesting is they've never given me a date. I never got a date, and then they, but every once in a while I get an email telling me that the date has been delayed, but they've never actually given me a date. The thing is, they've pulled all kinds of stuff where you order your Tesla, they have this big party, woohoo, and it was April 1st, 2016, and I don't know if this is turning out to be a grand April Fool's joke, but I thought about ordering it before that, and I thought, no, I want to actually see this thing, right? So there's the big party, there's the balloons, I get right online, I order my Tesla. April 1st, 2016, $35,000 was the deal. Now that is the most I would ever spend on a car. That is the tippy top, and I prefer not to, but for a brand new Tesla, I thought, yep, I'm going to do it. And the first email I got was, okay, so it's going to be delayed, but if you want it sooner, not sooner than we were expecting, whatever that date was, but sooner than later, you just need to spend $49,000 on it. You need to, and the answer is no.
Switch on, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I'm waiting for this $35,000. But before I bought the Tesla, I've driven my current car since October of 2007. That's when I bought my car. And I'm sort of a buy and hold. I'm not somebody who needs a new car all the time. But I do like to have a car that I trust and that I like. So I care somewhat about a car, but I'm finding that I care less and less. And when I was younger, I cared a whole lot about my car. It represented freedom to me. I would name my car. I liked just driving. I liked the experience of it.
I forgot that they announced that on April 1st. Like, if this is an April Fool's joke, they are really playing the long game.
They're killing it.
It's gonna be pretty legendary when 10 years from now, like, we promise it's coming right around the corner.
Right.
So what was it about the Tesla that made you want to get it?
Well, my son used to joke because I couldn't figure out what kind of car I wanted for the longest time. And, my son would joke, oh, why don't, as we're driving around, why don't we just point out all the cars and you can tell me why you don't want each one? All of the cars were looking the same to me. For the real reason I wanted the Tesla, a friend of mine had the S, so I've been in it and I've ridden in it and I like it. But I wanted something that felt really different because I honestly think that whatever car I get next, because I hold a car for so long, may very well be the last car that I drive. Not because I'm necessarily going anywhere, but because we're not going to be driving cars anymore. Mm-hmm. That, in another 10 years, the driverless technology could be good enough that I'm not actually driving it. And I always, I think being a driven woman has been a goal of mine. I think that would be great. I used to picture that as being chauffeured around, and now I realize it is going to be, but it'll be by, the car itself, not by...
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So virtually every big tech company, Google and Apple, they're all working on their robotic car, and they've already shown like amazing results. For instance, in the simulations they've run, the robotic cars crash less than humans. So it's already transitioning. Now, of course, they have that PR nightmare of a lot of people when asked, would they allow a computer to drive them around? For some reason, people are just freaking out about it. They're like, no, I want a human behind the wheel, even though the data is showing that they can potentially be just safer than us in the long term.
Yeah. What it comes down to with the cars is decision making. And before they can progress much further, people need to make decisions on what's important. So a human driver, if you're driving up and there's danger behind you, and you have to go forward. You have to go through. Your choices are you see a bunch of people, and you either have to go through the people or turn and hit a brick wall and kill yourself. These are the choices. You're going to kill the people in front of you or turn and kill you and everybody in the car. What decision do you make? Well, your standard human driver, it very much depends on who those people are in front of you, right? You think that it wouldn't, but it does. If that's school children, you're going into the brick wall. If it is a mob that is attacking you and that is your whole position that you've been in danger, the whole reason you're in danger in the first place, you're going through them. Well, the car can't make that kind of decision. The decision has to be pre-programmed. Mm-hmm. It just needs to know, if there's a group of people, am I going through the people or through the car? I mean, into the brick wall. And then, so likely what people are going to decide is it's going to go into the brick wall. So it's been predetermined that if there are people in front of you, the car, you've already signed up, the car is going to kill you in that brick wall. Now, here's the problem. If I want to go kill a bunch of people, all I need is a lot of people to stand on a highway, right? Mm-hmm. Because I know now that that's how I can terrorize and torment people, is just standing on a highway or just popping people up on a highway. So there are problems that are inherent into the driverless car programming that aren't immediately obvious necessarily.
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting, because when they first talked about it, seems like most technologies, it seems simple. Like, we just want to make it so that cars can drive themselves. And as we've gotten closer to it, there's been amazing articles written by ethics professors, like technology people, talking about some of the repercussions, and some of them are things you wouldn't even imagine. Like, one of the points they brought up was that one of the biggest opponents to the whole concept are car insurance companies. They rely on humans messing up X amount every year. Like, that's their entire business model. Since they've proven that the robotic cars will be able to have fewer accidents, it completely, 2% doesn't sound like that much to us, but when you multiply it over years, they're losing millions and billions of dollars.
Which is fine, but of course they're going to lobby for it not to be. I mean, there are all kinds of industries that just don't exist anymore because technology moved on, and I'm sure some of them have fought it along the way. But there's not a big market for carriage wheels anymore, and there are all kinds of things.
One of my favorite arguments someone made was they were talking about how easy terrorism might become, because they have a driverless car now. So it would be fairly simple to put a device like a bomb or something like that into a driverless car that would then take it to some place where it was heavily populated without the necessity of a human losing his life behind the wheel. So it's all these strange things that pop up with just being like, I don't want to drive my car anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's the other issue that people are having with the driverless cars is that there will be fewer organs that are able to be donated to hospitals, because most of the organs do come from car crashes. Now, okay, another weak argument. I get that a lot of people need organs, but we don't want to intentionally sacrifice people so that they get them either.
Yeah.
The answer there is that's where we need to be cloning organs. We need to figure out how to clone organs.
It's disrupting this status quo of just like, I was expecting 3,000 kidneys this year. Look what you've done, Google. Then there's the parking. I mean, most of America has been developed post. When you get to the East Coast, we notice that all of our states have these very jagged lines that are very tiny, because they were formed during a time when most of us were on horseback and walking. And as the automobile is invented and we do western expansion out to California, we get a lot lazier and they get a lot bigger, because the parameters of a state don't need to be as large now. But what that means is, if you're in California, everything you have to drive 20 minutes away, because the city and the state were planned in a time when you had a car. Versus if you live in an eastern city like Boston or New York, you can find most of what you need by walking or taking a train. So it's weird that we're suddenly going to have to reinvent how cities are planned, and one of the biggest problems is parking garages.
See, and I don't see it as necessarily a problem. I mean, I think that is a great advantage in that the percentage of our space in cities that's taken up by parking garages is greater than you realize. And even in order to build there's a cost to build a new building, because you have to be able to park so many cars in that building, or there has to be parking nearby. So what'll happen is that will make real estate less expensive. Now, I love that. Others won't. But it makes real estate less expensive because, say, parking accounts for, I don't know, 30%. I don't know what the percentage is, so don't quote me on it. But whatever percentage it is, even if it's 10% of a downtown city, well, that's 10% that just opened up. Now, there's going to be an expense in either converting those parking garages or tearing them down or whatever it is that they do. But and the reason, you may be thinking, well, my driverless car still needs a place to park, but it doesn't have to park anywhere near you. And frankly, it can go out and do other stuff. While you're at work, it can go take other people around and make money for you if you own it. I, at that point, won't have any pride in ownership, I don't think. I think, for me, it's always, it is about the transportation. And so if there are plenty of cars out there that'll come pick me up at any time, I really don't need to own it. And then I don't have the insurance on it, and I don't have the cleanup and maintenance and, whatever it is.
All right, so let's say that robotic cars started yesterday. And right now you could pull out your phone and a car would show up here and you could get in it. Would you feel comfortable getting in a robotic controlled car that you wouldn't drive?
It's not that I want to be the first adopter, but I'm ready for it. So I'm ready for it when it's safe.
Do you think you would be nervously watching the road as you'd be in it, or would you feel comfortable opening a book?
I think at first I would be nervous about it, but it's one of those things. Once I really trusted it, I think I would be okay with it. I am kind of ready for it. It's something that I've sort of been anticipating. Now, I don't know that I'll be opening the book. We'll have to see. That would be nice. I can read on a plane. I personally have some trouble reading on a car, but I can read in a train. So maybe, I don't know.
My friends and I joke about it all the time. I'm just like, we'll be in a car and one of us is driving. And we'll just go, could you imagine if we were just sitting here, just sitting? This car's going 70 miles an hour down an interstate. We're just here. We could play chess in the front seats. We can do whatever. And it is a weird concept to sort of think about, to really, because although I do trust the data behind the robot cars, it's still, those first couple of rides, I'm still going to be, I can't do anything, but I still could watch the road nervously.
See, I might be driving for 2 or 3 years while the kinks are being worked out. But but I am ready for when it's really ready. And it's going to change the design of cars incredibly. I mean, the car right now is designed around driving. The whole thing, even the back of it. The back seats are facing the way they're facing because the car is driving and they're all facing that direction, and you're not distracting the driver, and there's all kinds of things. So, the future cars could be circular. I don't know. They don't need to be any particular shape, and they really can be sort of geared or configured to what it is that you want to do. If you want to sleep on your commute, I'm sure that you can get a sleeping car where you just lie down and strap yourself in and you go to sleep, and then you wake up at your destination or whatever. I mean, whatever it is. If you like to read, if you like to watch TV, if you want to play games, if you want to work, there would probably be some different configurations.
The fascinating rebuttal to the whole concept I've heard actually hasn't come from the health insurance issue or how safe it is. This is the most interesting one I've heard. So the problem with this is that a lot of people talk about robotic cars as if, I don't want to, that'd be kind of weird, me driving my car and next to me is a robot car. And I usually just nod my head and I don't say anything. But the problem is that that's not going to be the case. You can't have humans and robot cars driving together. The robot cars will be able to talk to each other and measure each other's distance, and they'll have data to feed off, and they together will be safer than anything else. The problem, again, is humans. So we're not going to really be, and this is my guess based on what I've read, maybe there will be a different way, like a diamond lane or something like that, but they're not going to let humans drive with robots. They're going to basically say it's just robot cars. And the fascinating thing is the number of people that are angry by that. I want to be able to drive my car, as if driving a car is this, it is, they always said in in driver's ed, it's a privilege, not a right. And it's absolutely true, but it's fascinating how many people just want to be able to drive. They're still excited by having their car. And
so this is just a transition problem, and it's nothing we haven't done before. I mean, I'm sure that all of these arguments occurred. You could swap out driver's list car for car and car for horse. I'm sure somebody went, oh, no, you can't have, you can't drive a car. Are you kidding me? It's totally unreliable. They're crazy. They're all over the place. And, a human can't really operate a machine like that. We ride a horse, and well, you can't have those machines and horses on the road at the same time because all of that stuff, whatever that is, that's in the long run, that's just a little blip in our.
Like
in
we go horseback riding. There will probably be places where you go drive manual cars for recreation. Which brings up another thing: is how many industries, just by creating robotic cars, how many industries will be made as a result of it. So there's a place where you can go actually drive manual cars. And like the number of technicians you're going to need that are specifically trained in repairing robot cars, the jobs created with companies that are going to be competing with the three main ones that are developing it, although it will get rid of a lot, it also creates a lot of industries that only exist because of it.
Garage rehab.
Oh yeah. What do you do? I turn parking garages into McDonald's. That's what I do.
Well, no, I mean just even in every house.
In every house.
Every house will not need a garage. So.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Every house has. A lot of houses have garage. What do you do with a garage now?
I don't know, but there's a whole business right there.
That's a bedroom with a big door. That's what that is.
Right. Or it's a game room, or it's a whatever it is. But it's this extra space now.
Never even thought about that.
Unless you're in the South, it's already storage for most people. So there you go.
And like, will you even need traffic signs? Ones because there's a certain design to when you're driving on interstate, how many signs per feet you see to alert drivers.
No,
you don't really need it.
That would probably be in your car. It'll tell you where you are.
Or your car won't talk to you. Like, look, don't worry about it. Just sit there, look cute. I'm gonna get you to the place you're going. Like, don't worry about this. I got this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a weird emotional situation. Oh, and back to the part where people were saying, I don't want to be in the robot car. It's strange that it's such a weird emotional decision. What they're basically saying, based on what I've heard, is if the car crashes, I want it to be because of human error, which I don't really understand because I was talking to a pilot for an airline one time and he was telling me how, people think we're up there flying the plane. We fly for maybe 2% of it and we very rarely land it ourselves. Like a lot of the times it's computer assisted.
Yeah, and people don't realize it. Well, I can tell you that my father had this same feeling with automatic steering. He said, I remember when I was younger, he said, because my first car was a 1978 TR7, which I don't know if you can picture that, but it's a little two-seater British car. It looks like a little wedge and like a little doorstop. And he said, and it did not have power steering. And he said, I would never have power steering because when you have power steering, you are not turning the car. You are telling the car to turn the wheel. You're not turning the wheel. So before that, it was a lot harder to turn, but you were literally turning a wheel that turned an axis that turned the wheel, the tires. And power steering didn't do that. And he said he would never, ever drive a car with power steering because to him that was too automated. He wanted to turn that wheel. He didn't want to trust the car to do it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was in a car that the power steering went out, and I didn't realize how hard it is to turn tires.
The wheels, the steering wheels were a lot bigger then, and some of them were smaller. In the TR7 it was smaller, but it was in a smaller car. But yeah,
you almost can't do it unless the car is moving. It's virtually impossible.
Yeah. And also the clutch used to be a lot harder than they are now, and I don't know what that's about. But
so you said that was your first car?
TR7.
Did you name your car?
Yes.
What was your car's name?
King George.
King George. Why?
Because he's English.
Oh, was that? Oh, okay. So you assume that. All right. So let me get this 100% correct. If you were to have an English car, you felt that if it's English, it has to be royalty.
To me, it was, yeah. Obviously, a boy. Nobody would look at that car and think it was a girl. I don't think. But yeah, King George. Mm-hmm.
Mine was a 2001 Pontiac Bonneville.
Did it have a name?
Catherine.
Not Bonnie?
No, it was Catherine. Now that I think about it, that was definitely a better name. But I named it Catherine after the Wuthering Heights character, Catherine.
Oh, wait. So because it was your car, it had to be the heroine of a book?
Actually, it was the result of an insult. So my best friend said, wow, that car is really beat. Like really beat. I'm like, okay, I got it. No, like seriously beat. Like romance novel beat. Like Heathcliff slapping Catherine in the book Wuthering Heights beat. And I was just like, Catherine. That sounds good. Oh, man. Okay. I miss her, though. I miss her so much.
It is, yeah. She
was automatic, and she was too long, and you couldn't park her correctly because she was just this huge car, and everyone thought I was horrible at parking. And then I'd give them the keys, and they'd be like, "Wow, that's literally impossible to do anything short of triple parking this thing."
How did you play music in her?
Well, I didn't. It was mostly just this deadly silence of hatred at the time. But
I
now
see.
looking back at it, I do miss that car. No, it actually had a tape cassette. It had a tape cassette with the aux cord. That was my only experience with tape cassettes. It was an aux tape, which I know is weird.
King George had an 8-track.
What is that? I'm joking. I know what an 8-track is. I just love trolling 8-track people. What is an 8-track? Why don't you just get a DVD player? Like, that's not even the same thing.
It was old for me as well. Like I wasn't really familiar with an 8-track, but I became familiar with an 8-track, and you couldn't buy new 8-tracks at the time necessarily. So
what was your go-to? Did you have a go-to mixtape?
An 8-track mixtape. You are adorable.
I don't know how it works.
You can't. I don't think you could ever record on an
Yeah,
8-track.
cool. I have my go-to Spotify playlists now. That's what I do.
Yeah, I had Billy Joel.
Okay.
And I would go to sort of the vintage shops and the places to find the 8-tracks, whatever I could find that was modern music to me at the time, and Billy Joel was. So I didn't have very many 8-tracks, and I got really good.
Yeah, we
at
still have those. They're just filled with 20-year-olds with scarves and fedoras.
I see. So what's interesting is now that I'm not sure that this Tesla is ever coming, apparently now they've pushed it. It's hard for me to tell whether it was late 2018 or sometime in 2019.
Yeah, I was reading they've manufactured less than 600 of them, and most of them have gone out to employees. So there's a lot of people apparently still waiting for it.
400,000.
Oh boy, that is a lot of people.
And apparently their capacity is 2,500 to 5,000 a month. Now don't quote me on any of this because I'm not really clear. When I was reading the email and the different articles, the steam out of my ears was sort of blocking.
Yeah, how frustrating has it been seeing all the shenanigans of SpaceX and Elon Musk knowing that you're still waiting on a car?
I gotta tell you, the SpaceX, that was cool, seeing those things launch. But a flamethrower? Really? I mean, Elon he's on Twitter, like really hawking these flamethrowers. He made 20,000 of them or whatever. He's like, act now, only 19,000 left. And I'm like, would you just make my Tesla? Just focus, dude.
Focus. Are you going to be waiting outside of his house with a calendar and a printed out email saying,
And
"Hey man,
stomping foot." Yeah. Yeah. I just want to. I do. I just want to go grab him by the ear, drag him back.
Just sit down.
Sit down. Make that Tesla.
So you're gonna need that. You're gonna need that Mars rocket to get out of here if you put me off one more month.
Right. You've been saying you're gonna make it. Meanwhile, my car, is a 2007. It's a Lexus. It's been very, very reliable. I don't love it, but it's fine.
I'm gonna say, not that I'm insinuating anything, but when we looked at the pictures of the inside of the Tesla, I'm, how do I put this delicately, concerned that you're not gonna be able to use it.
It's not that I won't be able to use it. It's just that it won't function in my presence, is what you're trying to say, right?
Right. I was picturing a regular car that had all your familiar buttons and levers and knobs and dials and steam rotaries, like whatever it is that you use.
No, it's basically a couch with an iPad and a steering wheel.
That's pretty accurate. Yeah, it was just we looked at it and I said, wow, that's just a screen. For me, it looked like,
Yeah. It is true. For those of you who don't understand what Artemis is alluding to.
No, don't make no mistake. I don't understand either. Like, I'm part of that group that doesn't understand. The things I've seen you do with a computer are insane to me.
Yeah. Technology and I wouldn't say that we don't get along. I think it started it. It just doesn't like me.
I didn't believe in Mercury retrograde until I met you, honestly.
Yeah. Things really don't work around me. And I literally, and I am not joking when I tell you this, I will be standing at the copy machine, pushing the button to copy, and it will not copy. And I have to call somebody in the studio over just to push the button because it does not identify me as a human. And Artemis will come over and push the button and it copies and it's just fine. I mean, it's irritating. And it's not really a button, you're tapping a screen. But for some reason, I tap it lightly, I tap it hard, I do the flat of my hand, the tip of my hand. It doesn't matter. It does not respond to my
And for
touch.
those keeping score at home, she just referred to the all-in-one printer as a copy machine. So you're starting to see what I'm experiencing. Yeah, our mode of operations when the computer, it starts with Artemis, and I say, okay, what now? Before I start, refresh it. Whatever you're doing, just refresh the page. And if that doesn't work, I go and look at her screen, and usually it ends up working. It's that her aura of technological fail is that strong to where just the presence of someone who even recognizes what's going on alleviates the issue.
So the good news is there is actual evidence. Before you see it operate, usually you see it not operate.
You're good at spreadsheet, though. It's not like can't use any technology. You have like certain technologies you're really good at, like spreadsheet. Spreadsheet puts me to sleep when I look at it for long. The words, I just got sleepy just now saying the word.
Yeah, I used to know how to code the spreadsheets and everything. I mean, because spreadsheets have been around for a while, so that's something I used to do way back when the Apple Mac looked a lot different than it does today.
Yeah, so I was a little concerned. It might be good that you're not getting this Tesla. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to get that out of your driveway.
Yeah, you may have a point. If I don't do the Tesla, then I think what I'm going to do is go more retro. What I'm thinking is, if this is truly going to be the last car that I'm in control of driving, I think it might be a stick shift.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Just go back and really do that. For a while, I did have a Porsche 911, and it had, it was a second car, and it had a stick, and it was fun to drive. But the problem was, two things. Well, basically the problem was I was going to kill myself in it. Because if you're going to drive it, I didn't speed, but I got up to speed fast. This is the kind of car where you're sitting at the red light and you want to be first so that when it turns green, you can launch.
Oh my God.
It's a Porsche 911 Carrera. I don't know how to tell you, but it's okay. Did you see Cars?
I did.
The girl car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But mine was teal green.
Nice.
1996, which was the last. They call it air cooled, but really it's oil cooled. Anyway, I was going to kill myself in it. So I think the first time my son was in it, he looked at the car and he goes, "Mom, it's a girl car." And I was like, "Why is it a girl car?" "It's so-and-so," whatever the girl's name was from Cars. I was like, "Get in." Yeah. So we got in and I glued his ass to the back of the seat. He's in there with his hair blowing and he's gripping on for dear life. And he goes, "I get it. I won't call it a girl again. It's powerful." And I slowed down. I said, "You can call it a girl. I just don't want that look on your face when you do."
Yeah, it's amazing what Pixar does to supply and demand. When Finding Nemo came out, I read that the demand for clown and angelfish skyrocketed. Which was good for a while, but then there was a situation where there was like a shortage, and then they started making more of them, but then they started having aquariums where the conditions for breeding said fish were not terribly great because they were just going for quantity instead of quality. It's an unfortunate consequence of amazing Pixar films.
Interesting. Well, so we'll see. I don't know. And maybe, and meanwhile, while I've been waiting for this Tesla, I had sort of a major moment with my Lexus. One of these times where you pull up to the Lexus dealership in a car that's running just fine for its checkup, and it needs the 120,000 mile thing, which means it needs this expensive chain, and it, whatever it is, it needs tires, it needs this, it needs, $4,000 later, I walk out and go, okay, so that car needs to drive. I need that going another, 2 years of car payments? So we're just gonna, I don't.
Yeah, we're gonna be like one day standing cars. So all right, see you later. I gotta go to the garage. Yeah, that's your problem, buddy. Bye.
Right. That's true.
It's and Uber's probably a really good gateway drug because it's sort of already programmed a lot of us to just be okay with when I need a ride somewhere, I'm going to a piece of technology, my phone, to request a car that I'm seeing shows up that has a person in it, and then so. I feel like
that is absolutely the case. So that's not accidental. It is by design. It is absolutely the case, and it is why Uber will probably be the leader in in like rental or on-demand driverless cars because they're set up to do it. And as they move forward and as they become available, Uber will buy those, and they will, disperse them throughout.
It'll
and
virtually be the same experience. The only difference is it's just not a human.
it's the same thing. And so that's why when I am in an Uber and I hear, a guy say, "Oh, I'm loving this. This is going to be my career. I'm going to do it for the next 20 years." Of course, I don't say anything because it's none of my business, but nobody will be doing that for 20 years. That, so if you're doing that, know that it is of the moment. It is not something that is going to be a
Which is
career.
interesting. It's like on the elemental chart, like once you get to the further out atoms, you start getting to like the 236s, 7s. They're the ones that only exist for like a tiny split second. It's like it's a entire industry was Uber drivers, and a couple years later, gone.
Right. So this is one of the advantages of getting older. You can kind of see what's a blip in the screen. Now, some of you may not remember. I'll give you an example of this. I remember I was driving, and there's two kids in the back, and they were a little older than mine. So I'm driving with a friend, and it's his kids in the back, or a girl and her friend, and they're texting each other in the car. This is how they are, kids, and so they're texting each other in the car, but what they're doing is, and we're commenting on how fast they're texting, but the way that you texted at the time was, and I don't know exactly, but on a 1, if you hit it once, it was A. If you hit it twice, it was B. If you hit it 3 times, it was C. And then the 2, whatever it was. And do you remember that kind of texting? Mm-hmm. Okay. So they were saying, oh, they were so fast at it, and they were faster than we would ever be.
Yeah, T9, classic. I remember that in high school.
And I just said, it's not going to matter. That's going to be over in a blip. You will not be doing it in 5 years. Oh, yes, we will. No. Let me tell you how this is going to go down. There will be letters. You'll just be typing. After that, you will just be talking. And after that, you will just be thinking. And that's how that's going to happen.
Right.
And they could not believe that technology would go
I had
away.
one of the I was one of the first like 3 or 4 people in my middle school to get a phone. It was prepaid Virgin Mobile, and it had the T9 style texting. And then in high school, freshman year, that's when cell phones really became something where like every teenager was going to start having them, and they started inventing like the slider phones with a full keyboard. And we were some of my group of friends, we were like, oh man, we're so fast at T9. Now we knew it wasn't going to last, because one thing we saw was it went from middle school, these big brick, not that great cell phones, to within the freshman year of high school, the iPhone 3G was coming out. Mm-hmm. So we knew that whatever was going on right now was this weird puberty of cell phone technology. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because what we did, our mobile phone just required a dime. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you pulled over and you put a dime in it.
Sidebar, I don't know if you guys remember, but I think the most underrated cell phone in existence, who I to this day feel so sad for, because the only reason it went under is because the iPhone showed up, and the iPhone redefined what a phone is, and smartphones and touchscreens. It was the Motorola Razr. I think to this day, in an alternate universe, had the iPhone never been invented, the Razr was the perfect phone. You could lose it between a seat. It was so skinny. You could flip it open, and I was like, this is the ultimate technology. And then I saw the iPhone, and I was just like, okay, well, right. Bad timing, dude. 5 years sooner.
Yeah, well, we went from payphones, which were everywhere. As long as you had a dime, you were good, and then to if you had a mobile phone, it wasn't really mobile. It was cellular, and it wasn't mobile in that it moved around when your car did. It was a permanent
My
thing.
parents talked to me about it. They talked about like this big pack you had to carry, and it had like a big brick phone that you had to pull out.
Sometimes the phone just came with the car, but yeah, you left it there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then, I mean, it wouldn't work if you were walking around. It had to be with the car. And I don't know if that was the battery or the antenna. I don't really know. And then they were sort of luggable. I would refer to it as luggable. And then they were, the brick, and then, yeah. So, but eventually, it's interesting how they're going to go, because you would think, oh, they're going to get smaller and smaller. It'll be a necklace or a watch or something. But then they've started making them bigger and bigger now, because now they're basically sort of TV screens. So it'll go one of two ways. I know, so my son and I, we were walking in Lowe's, I think, and for some reason they had this great big display, and it was what looked like a great big iPhone, and at an aisle, and Mom goes, oh look, my son goes, look Mom, it's the iPhone 84.
That was a good joke.
Yeah.
Solid joke.
Right.
Oh,
So they
yeah.
do seem to be getting bigger.
The most horrifying experience I think I had was my generation has always been hailed as the technologically perfect. Like, we can use technology fairly well. The first time I ever felt the fear that everyone else feels is when I was going through Chicago O'Hare Airport. And they had this giant wall they had converted to a touchscreen, because in airports, especially ones like O'Hare, they try to do like cool experimental stuff to just sort of, cool design stuff. So it's this giant, basically, like you were saying, giant iPad wall, and everyone was crowded around it. And I was like, I don't know what I was just going through the terminal, and I was like, I don't know what they're looking at. It's just a giant screen. I mean, it's pretty obvious. So I decided to go over there and see what all the fuss was about. They weren't staring at the screen. When I got up to the group and I looked over their shoulders, what I saw was there was this little girl, couldn't have been older than 5 years old, standing in front of the screen, and not just using it, but she was pretty close to breaking the system. She was opening up games, like she was playing them, she was moving that over, she was pulling up the weather, putting it down, and she was like pulling up the OS like interface and the preferences, and people were just staring, looking around at each other, thinking the exact same thing. We are looking at the future overlord of the planet. We don't have a chance. She needs to be stopped. Whose child is this? We need her under 24-hour watch. And I was like, this is actually pretty horrifying. That stuck with me the whole way on the plane. Stewardess is like, would you like peanuts? And I'm like, do you understand? I just met our overlord. She's back there. Turn around. We need to get her.
Right. But meanwhile, she won't be able to ask a boy on a date.
She might not have to. She might just break into, every user account he has and programs in his schedule, date with me.
Right.
So
Okay.
when it comes to transportation in the future, what repercussions do you think will happen as a result of being able to instantly teleport to another part of the planet? Because a great deal of our time is spent with being in cars, locked in on the interstate, just moving to different places, going to different places. Like, what are some of the benefits or drawbacks do you think will happen as a result of being able to teleport?
So are you thinking, is this philosophical, or are you thinking we're really going to be able to teleport? Or are you thinking it's more going to be like the vacuum tube where you're getting in and going?
I'm one of those people where, assuming that humans make it further than 2,000 years from now, which, is questionable, eventually you can pretty much expect everything to happen. And so if we just keep going on this path, the transportation is getting less expensive, it's getting faster, we're able to go greater distances. I mean, if you told Benjamin Franklin he could get to New York from California in a couple-hour flight, it would be insane. So I imagine that it's possible to eventually be at a point where we can pretty much instantly get to a place, whatever that technology looks like.
Yeah. So if you're talking about that far out, 2,000 years, and we're able to teleport or whatever, I think that the Earth will be one at that point. I'm going with the Star Trek model. It'll all be sort of one, and we will be visiting other worlds, and that's
okay.
So that'll be kind of local.
I guess it is ridiculous to assume I can teleport anywhere. I can get to the mall instantly.
Right.
Oh no, you get to the mall on Mars instantly.
Right. I think at that point, there's so much about our lives that will be different that, because doing the Benjamin Franklin thing, there's so much about our lives that are different too. I mean, he also, he not only couldn't picture getting somewhere that fast, he would have no concept that you could have so much in your hand with the phone, so much information in your hand, and that people would specialize. So, in his day, you could know a lot about everything, right? Because there just wasn't that much to know, frankly.
Yeah.
I just think that the world will be so different at that point.
Yeah, he specialized in, one of his specialties was printing presses. So he probably would, one of my favorite quotes about Benjamin Franklin is they're always saying that if you were going to revive anybody from the past, Benjamin Franklin is regarded as one of the few people you could revive, and although he may not get new technology, he would sort of be able to he would be able to grasp it, sort of. So yeah, it would be strange explaining like web development to him in terms of typesetting, you know, because he worried about paper and entire industries that he might be like, that's
like
odd.
what he would probably appreciate most, penicillin.
Oh yeah.
I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, that's right, old Ben. So I think that's a good place to end on just shading one of our founding fathers. I think it was long overdue.
Okay, that works. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Maurer Glass Podcast, where we remained focused on cars and technology and penicillin.
And Benjamin Franklin's personal life.
We look forward to seeing you next time.